Θα προχωρήσουμε στην επόμενη ενότητα. I want to invite to the podium Mr. E Lorge. He will speak to us about can innovation be affordable in our societies?
Good afternoon. So let me start with a few disclaimers first. My first disclaimer is I don't speak properly Greek, which means I have little understanding of what has happened so far. The second part is I speak English with a French accent. This means that there is a risk that you will have a little understanding of what I'm about to say. So I'm living with that. I think I need to exactly introduce myself. So I'm the general manager of Bristol Myers Squibb, but I'm here to speak on behalf of the pharmaceutical innovation industry in Greece. So this is exactly the hat I will wear today, which means that what I'm talking about is very simple concept, which in a way, after discussion we have just had now, is what are we ready for? I think that's the key part. So if I start, my concepts are very simple, but I'm trying to propose solutions tonight on one problem, which is actually a very good problem to have. Is the first part, we talked about science fiction, I think earlier. We are living a science fiction world right now. HIV became chronic disease, that's one part. HCV is becoming curable right now. And immuno-oncology is changing the paradigm in oncology. So it's a fantastic moment in history right now. At the same part, I think it's another disclaimer, I have 4 kids. And when my kids were born, statistically, I learned that 2 of them will see the 22nd century. And I probably raise the questions about what lifestyle the 2 others will have. It's a discussion I will have at home. But what is interesting about that is that population is going older and older. So if you take the 2 parts, you have more and more drugs on one hand, you have more and more population who needs drugs on the other hand. It means there is a need which is increasing and a pressure on the budget. It's very straightforward. Worldwide, we consider that there will be an impact year after year about 5% on the budget. So 5% is a pressure. 5% is not something which is a massive issue and that cannot be solved. But that's the situation worldwide. And I think we will have to go back to the Greek reality. Before I go there, let me go on the basics. And I think for some of you, it's very basic what I'm about to say. But the first point, drugs are about enhancing and extending human life, not about anything else. But that's the first part. That's the first value. Half of the increase of longevity is due to drugs. And that's the benefit of drugs. Now, I'm ready to talk about money, because this is what people want to talk about today. So I'm ready to talk about money and talk about productivity. And it was said in much better terms than me before. But for those who want a simple example, if I go to work, if I'm sick and I cannot work anymore, then if I have drugs that are curing me, I can go back to work. It's good for business. Now you have to go another part. If my wife, who I said before, I have 4 kids, so she can't work. She's working a lot, but she's not paid for that. If she is sick and she's going back she's going back to life, I would say, then she will not go back to work, but she will go back to spending, which she knows how to do, and it's good for the economy. So the point is that treating people is also good for the economy. So it's not the reason why we're doing it, but it's good for the economy. And the last point is the better the people are treated, the less supportive care you need. So you're also saving money. So in other words, what is doing the right thing, which is to cure people, is also, from an economic point of view, it's a good investment. So we talk about drug expenditure, we should talk about drug investment, and that's the key part. However, the reality in Greece is a little bit different. The reality in Greece, because we talk a lot about some concepts, but let's talk about the reality in Greece. The reality in Greece is that Greek patients are paying more and more year after year. The co-payments are increasing. The reality in Greece is that the hospitals, like EOP, are unable to make their budget. And that's happening it's getting worse and worse. The reality in Greece is that the health industry is paying the difference. And is paying more and more. And that's something that I'd like to discuss a little bit. So when I say we're paying more and more, I talk about clawback which are unsustainable. So some of you are probably familiar with the clawback, some less. So let me understand what the clawback is. The clawback, I think it's a genius idea of somebody somewhere, which just decided that, here's the budget, And everything above the budget, if I go beyond the budget, is paid by the industry. It's genius, if you think about it. You find somebody else who will pay everything for you. So at the beginning, we were there, say, okay, we have to pay, I think it's 14% or 10%. You start to pay, you look, you say, okay, you pay 10%, 15%. It's probably not appropriate, but let's pay. And then the more it goes, the more it grows. And it's actually, we felt all a little bit like frogs. Not only because I'm French here, but if I'm going on the frogs, it's the image of the frogs which are boiling. You know, if you put frogs in boiling water, they immediately jump. If you let them in the water and you boil it step by step, they died. And that's what's happening step by step. We're dying. And when we're arriving at that spot where we realize it's not bearable anymore, somebody has another idea. It's let's do the same with the hospital budget. And let's add a trick. We will reduce the hospital budget by 170 million. So it practically means we're saying to the industry, please finance half of the budget for us. So that's a big question in the current part. So you could say, what does it mean concretely? Let me be very pragmatic and very simple. Here's what it means practically when I talk to a hospital. Comes January, come February, January, you start to work in a hospital. Budgets are not set yet, you get organized. February, March, everything is working. April, May, June, so far so good. Summer comes, beautiful summer. You go in Greece, you go on vacation, you enjoy. Finally, you decide to come back to work. I don't know how you do it. It's very difficult in Greece. But then you arrive in September. Come September, everything which is delivered is for free. Come October, everything which is delivered is for free. Come November, everything which is delivered is for free. Come December, everything is delivered is for free. This is what concretely means. So we can discuss about risk-sharing agreement. As far as I'm concerned, so far, I'm covering a third of the need of the hospital. And that's the Greek reality. So you could say, like some say, so what? Where is the so what for us? Why do I need sales? Our industry is a fantastic industry. Our industry is the industry which is investing the most in the world. We invest more than telecom industry. We invest more than computer. It's fantastic. We invest a lot also because we're inefficient. That's also a fact. We have struggled to find good drugs, and that's a fact. But we invest, and I took a few companies here, we invest, which we are familiar with you because they all work in the oncology field. And you see between 16% to 36%, we're talking billions here. We're talking about sales. When we set the price of a drug, when we sell drugs, we do not recoup the past cost. Those are sunk costs. We are financing today's research. This is a very important part. The money right now is being used to finance the research right now, not to look at the past, to look in the future. So that's why I care about my sales, because that finances my research. And they're all both linked. Let me go back one more part. So yes, but you have high price. That's the argument we hear a lot. You have high price, so you can have a lot of decrease. So we talk about a lot of sophisticated model here, but you have in different European countries sophisticated model that determines, depending on the value of the drugs, what should be the fair price. And that's a very good way to go. In Greece, it's much simpler. Much simpler. You take the average of the three lowest in Europe. So basically, you take the price of, let's say, Romania, Bulgaria, Estonia, and you take these are the three lowest price in Europe, and that will be the price set for Greece. That's the first part. And then, because it's a hospital product, there is an 8.5% decrease. And another 5. I don't know why they separated, but that's a fact. Then, because it's a new product, and somewhere there's a message, we don't like new products, it's 5% decrease. And then, for a reason I don't know, there's a 2% for mental healthness. That's another part, but that one we can live with. And finally, you add a clawback. And basically where I am 52% below the lowest price in Europe. 52%. So I hear the argument, and you made the point, we're not Germany, but this is the starting point, 52% below the lowest of Europe. There is a flip side to that one. The flip side is generic price. And this is controversial. But let's face the reality. The price of generic products in Greece are twice more expensive than the average OECD. Twice more than the average. It's 5 times more expensive than the most efficient countries. But let's compare only to the average. Twice more. It's more expensive than Switzerland and Austria. So basically, you have generic products which are more expensive than Austria and Switzerland, and innovative products which are 50% below Romania and Bulgaria and other countries. That's, in other words, OECD report says the difference between an innovative drugs and a generic drugs is a ratio of 1 to 14 in OECD. It's 1 to 4 in Greece. So are innovative products expensive? I don't think the high-cost drug is the right name for the category. That's the first part. So let me go to the next step. Why do I care about generic price? Why do I care about generic price? And I was trying to find a way to explain that, and I just found the story of the truck. I care because of the truck. So here's the story. It's very simple. You imagine a truck driver who has a big truck, and he's trying to go through a tunnel, but the truck is too big for the tunnel. And it's stuck. It just can't go there. No further, no backward, no frontward. Somebody comes and say, I have a solution for you. Deflate the tire. Thank you. You know the story. And you know what the truck driver reacts? He says, I'm not stuck down. I'm stuck up. So now for those who are understood, this is exactly what's happening right here. You have a huge need. And yes, we have constraints in the budget. And that's a fact. And we cannot ignore this fact. But there is another fact, is we need to deflate the tires. Otherwise, we'll never be able to add new innovation. So one of the fundamental issues here is the cost of generic drugs. That's the fundamental issue. And I do care because that's the way to finance innovation in a sustainable way, which is the key part. There is another element of the equation, which is the volumes. And I think it was covered pretty well before. But it's that slide I want to come back to it. For the volumes, there are many solutions. And it was said, it's simple, it's the right drugs for the right patient at the right time. So the right drugs is that not all drugs are equal. Some drugs are breakthrough. Some drugs bring some marginal but relevant value. And some drugs are me too and have no value. And I think it's fair to have a discussion to properly value those different drugs. So we need a HTA. It's not only that it's required, we need a HTA. That's a key part, to determine a fair value of the different drugs. Then there was a question of the right patient. The right patient goes beyond simply the right medicine. In other words, the right patient goes beyond the SMPC. It goes to, is that patient have the right family support to go through the disease? Is the patient, can I really offer something to that patient? It goes, so this is where the doctors have a role that cannot be replaced. That's a key part. There is a need for registries. Are we ready for them or not? I don't know, but there is a need for those registries. We need to capture the real value on the patient, and that's a key part. And last but not least is the right time. The right time is, when is the right time to use an innovative drug versus a cheap drug? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on the therapeutic area, and it depends on the drugs. Sometimes it's better to start with a cheap alternative. Sometimes it's better to start with an efficient alternative. It depends. I can take an example, which I was talking about at lunchtime. Some of you talk about IO. IO-IO combinations looks very expensive on paper, and yet NICE has approved them in 2 weeks. NICE is not what we call, usually we say it's not innovation friendly, and it's not industry friendly, but they have approved it in 2 weeks because it makes sense. So the answer is, it depends. And those assessments need to be made. Therapeutic protocols need to be defined by doctors and health economists together so that it makes sense. I think that's the key part. So that was a very short presentation. I'm already at the conclusion. So there is one way to look at things, which is short-term. Price cut leads to clawback, leads to horizontal measures, and leads to a negative part, a negative spiral. And this is what has happened over the last few years. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And the frogs are dying. I think that's the key part here. But there's no fatality on that one. We have complicated solutions and we have simple solutions. So what is important is to focus on the priority that can be implemented fast. When I talked about generic earlier, a study recently showed that if the generic price, the price law was the same for generic as for innovative drugs, there would be between 250 million euros and 300 million euros of saving for the industry. It's 1.5 to 2 times more than the hospital gap. So this is things that, without changing the law, but applying it, could be implemented very quickly. That's the first part. The second part is we're probably not ready yet for registries, but there are therapeutic areas with registries. There are 4 of them. We're probably not yet ready to have sophisticated deals, but we are willing to discuss them as quickly as possible because we can't wait. And we can have solutions on a volume agreement. They are totally feasible. And we'll go to more sophisticated solutions over time as we get ready for that. So there are plenty of tools. The only thing we need is a clear will. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very excellent points you have made. You have pointed exactly to the problems that we have discussed in Greek before. And I'm sure there are questions from the audience or any comments. Please.
Excellent point indeed. But the introduction that you have made really worried me even more, because when you have 1.5 million unemployed that you have to treat when they get ill, first of all, you don't get back the benefits of sending them back to work that you mentioned. The second is if you have a 5% increase in the budget for drugs and you are obliged to produce 3.5 surplus on your budget, then it gets even more difficult. So I really don't know how this is going to work out at last. I'm not really very optimistic about the outcome.
So I'm in business in Greece, so I'm optimistic by nature. So I think that's a key part. So no, there are solutions. So first, on the part that you can't make a decision because the person is employed or unemployed. That's the part. And if you let the population getting sicker and sicker, there is no way to recover. And that's a personal belief. I believe that the solution of the crisis is in the people, and we have to take care of the people. Because if you invested to have educated people in Greece, it's not to let them die from disease that can be treated. I think that's a key part. But that's why I said the drug budget is not only for the economy. That's why I'm very careful on that argument. Yes, it's good for the economy, but this is not the reason why we're doing it. That's the first part. I still believe that right now, the industry has been, and the innovative industry has been willing to support the Greek government and will continue to do that as long as it can. So when I say that is, when there was huge crisis, and I'm talking last year and specifically, we never stopped supplying. At that moment, I had no idea if I would ever be paid or in which currency. I don't know any companies that has stopped supplying. So I think there is an understanding there is a big crisis here. So most of us have accepted delays of payment, which are extremely high, but because there is an exceptional situation right here. So again, in discussion with government, we all know, and I know if I take for my company, I know that the future of my company will not be driven by the results of Greece business. That's very clear. And there was a point that was made before. Unfortunately or fortunately, most of the industry is treating disease which are Western world because the Western world is paying for that. And other countries are surfing on the innovation phase. I think it's something that we industry, we acknowledge and we agreed. That means that we do not practice the same price and the same net price in all the same markets. That's a key part. So there was a point that was made earlier, which is a very relevant point. We need to talk. If we talk it and put it on the table, we will find reasonable solution.
First, let me tell you that I agree with almost everything you said, but let me play devil's advocate. It looks to me, in a way, from a certain point of view, that we're trying to define a way to pay less which will be either unsophisticated, abrupt, and dull, or sophisticated, clever, and smart, but the end result will be to pay less for the same drugs. I mean, what is the bottom line difference between the two methods, the clawback, which is a crude way, and the smart way, which will result also in paying less? And how much less can the industry afford?
No, it's an excellent question because, and unfortunately my answer might not be that good, but because the answer, it depends. What I mean is drugs are at different life cycle at different moments. Companies are at different moments. So sometimes we can afford more than the clawback. Sometimes we can afford less. So that's the key part. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. So that's an element. So the clawback is a horizontal arbitrary measure, which has also a massive issue, is that it's not a reform. So it's hiding any reform. It's actually, as long as there is a clawback, there will be no reform in the country because there is nobody who is accountable for it. The only people who care about the fact that the budget is not appropriate is the industry. The industry has limited power on the policy of the government. So the point of the clawback for me is I prefer a negotiated agreement than a clawback. That's the key part. Because a negotiated agreement, I know what I'm signing for. There is a third element, which is a business element, which is less relevant to you. But when there is a clawback, when I start the year, I have no clue how much I will pay at the end. I just know it will be more than the previous year, but I don't know how much. And you're always willing to pay for visibility. It's a business part, but it's a reality.
Why the price of generics is so expensive in Greece? Is because of the Greek industry?
So I make sure because I know it's recorded. So there is a misunderstanding. There are a couple of misunderstandings, I think, at policy level. But that's a view of a foreigner. First misunderstanding is that the health budget should support Greek jobs. And I think I'm not against Greek jobs. On the contrary, and by the way, I'm only employing Greek, except for me. But I'm not against that concept. It's just saying it's not the health budget, because you shouldn't make the choice between do I cure people or do I employ them? Okay? You shouldn't make that choice. And if you want to make that choice, it's not the health budget. There are other tools for the policy, for the government, to support local jobs. So my point is, if the government wants to support Greek jobs, it should use other tools, not the health budget, or increase the health budget accordingly. That's the fundamental answer, I think. There is another element, which is it's not exclusive. And the key part, when I say generic, I say off-patent and generic products, because for me it's the same thing. So okay, so off-patent products are too expensive. This is our companies. Okay, so our companies are saying yes, it's time to reduce those prices so we can afford innovation. So it's not Greek companies against non-Greek companies. It's different. It's more complicated than that. I think the point is to take actions to build for the future and to decrease those prices. And I forgot one very important part, which is critical. There should be more volume for generic and for Greek companies. If you have lower prices, the logic is to have more volumes. So it goes together. So I'm not saying that the Greek industry should have less turnover. It's not my point. I actually don't mind which turnover they have. This is their problem. But obviously for me, there should be much more generic and much cheaper. That's it. And that's that balance that needs to be found, and everybody will be satisfied.
Dr. Thanassiadis.
I enjoyed very much your talk, and actually I agree with, I would say, everything you said. And I take advantage of this, like, when your conclusion, I think we need clarity, we need clear discussion. And we don't take clarity in our discussion with government anyway. It's not clear. And also I think that we have some certain strengths though. One is that we have to communicate this to people, that since you are investing, at the same time financing our access to innovation. So it has to be communicated with people, so they have this common social sense that I support the system, I support the system because if I do the innovation, if I take value from what we are investing, you are investing, we are investing, if I take advantage of some strengths in Greece. Strength is that probably, I think this is the right place to invest because it's going to be a nice country all the time and people will always be, will be willing to work. And also, I think we have many young scientists and oncologists who are willing to come back to Greece and work. So it's a very nice place to invest because you have all the other structures here. But unless we communicate this with the society, unless we say that there is an urgent need for innovation, for developing structures, for merging hospitals, for having like value-based care in big hospitals and not like with fragmentation, then your investment will go down, our opportunity will go down. If I can say this clearly to people, I think the Greek society is going to support what you're doing and what we're trying to do.
And just one point, because I don't, it's a comment on the question, so I will not answer that, but to comment, as a foreigner, the quality of the doctors' education is very high, is higher than the average of Europe. And on the top of it, those people are educated and speaking English. I can do a speech here in English. If I try to do the same in France, nobody will understand me. So that's I mean, if I speak English. So that's a key asset, that's a key value, where with a proper strategy, it can be valued. So if I take another example, the clinical research, the clinical investment in Greece is about 80 million euros a year. So it's 80 million, which is coming mostly from foreign companies and going into the country. It's, to give you a perspective, it's a little bit less than Cyprus. Okay, so I'm comparing to Cyprus. The best in class in those countries is similar size as Greece. Is Belgium. It's the best in class. So it's not something that can be achieved overnight, but it's 500 million. Compared to 500 million is the budget. The hospital budget is 570 million, the official one. So the normal size is something like 200 million. So if Greece was able to value its research, of having a true strategy, not just a move here and a move there, but have a true strategy there is a true benefit, there is a true competitive advantage of Greece right now, which is the people and the education.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I can conclude, then from your point of view, risk sharing is an option, but in a more organized way rather than clawback. And if I also translate correct, innovation with investment is also an option for Greece for the future.
Absolutely. So clawback is not a risk sharing. Clawback is because it's not a discussion. Clawback is a tax. It's not a risk sharing. It's a tax. It's no more, no less. A risk sharing is when I sit next to somebody and I say, here's the value of my drug and what I'm willing to do, and the person in front say, no, I'm willing to pay a little bit less, but let's find an agreement. That's a risk sharing agreement, and it can be more sophisticated. There was a very nice chart to explain what type of deal exists. Clawback is a tax. You say, the hospitals are mine because this is public hospital, and the Ministry of Health, I determine the budget, I pay the hospital infrastructure, I pay everything, but I will not pay the drugs, or at least only 2/3 of it. So it's a tax. So that's the only nuance. Okay. So I don't consider the clawback I think none of us look at the clawback as a risk-sharing part. It's a tax. Basic, simple risk-sharing are within reach. I mean, we were willing to, 4 companies or 5 companies were called for HCV negotiation in July. They were given a week to get ready for that, and they were ready, all of them, as far as I know, and they all went to discuss with the authorities. So we are looking forward to the next step.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.